Knowing this, your shelter has two primary functions: to protect you from the elements and to lessen your visibility and overall exposure. For these reasons, I've chosen the military poncho, bivy bag, and 100% wool blanket for my shelter in almost 90% of the conditions that I explore. With this combination, I'll be able to stay dry and comfortable in most weather conditions while still retaining a low profile. But if you find yourself in a crisis without your pack, you can still make a shelter using the core skills and the natural materials that you have around you. A standard operating procedure, or an SOP, is a set of predetermined practices or instructions for daily routines, tasks, and ways to react to a situation. Once you've made a standardized plan for something other than an emergency, you can easily adapt what you've learned about making an SOP into planning for a nuclear disaster, such as the ongoing catastrophe in Japan, riots that are increasing heavily around the world, or how to react to an earthquake or prolonged power outage. Having this plan allows your reaction to an emergency to be well thought out and practiced before facing a crisis. Procedures such as these are not meant solely for a disaster. You can have a plan for your home, setting out normal security measures such as leaving a light on when no one's there. For daily or weekly responsibilities, as in energy conservation and meal planning, all the way up to how members of your family or your group will react to a fire and where to meet in the case of an emergency or a national disaster. Start by making an SOP for your next wilderness outing or camping trip. Write out where you'll be going, how long you expect to stay there, what the weather is going to be like, and what meals you'll be planning. Try to take with you as little as possible, and then take notes and see what you could have brought with you that you would have needed, and what you brought with you that you didn't use. One of the most important terms that you'll learn is one that you can base your survival off of in almost every situation. By its definition, you'll learn when and how to react and exactly what steps that you need to take, and that's the rule of threes. Adhering to the rule of threes, shelter then becomes your second largest concern in an emergency, and one that should be considered before a disaster strikes. Providing both security as well as strategic defense against the elements, and in many cases additional observation, designing and familiarizing yourself with a readily available shelter system is one of the single most important aspects to survival planning. The shelter that you finally choose in many cases will be all that stands between you and the raw environment and should protect you from a number of items, including radiation from the sun, the bite of a chilling wind, as well as both rain and snow. I make a point to carry with me as little as possible. This not only lightens my load, allowing me to travel longer and farther, but it also lessens my dependency on modern equipment and allows me to find a suitable replacement for items that malfunction in the field. This dried branch is going to make the perfect stakes for my shelter. Any object that you choose to make your stake with, and that can be anything from a stick that you find on the ground, all the way to an improvised or man-made material. Whatever you choose must have two important features. It needs to be harder than the stick that you're using to baton it into the ground with, and be readily made into a point. The human body will become hypothermic anytime that a person's core temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning that even in warmer months when the temperature is well above freezing, you run the risk of succumbing to the elements. And that makes finding a location for your shelter site an important part of your survival. This makes shelter, starting with your clothes, a primary concern in the regulation of your body's core temperature and your ability to survive. You should always consider dressing for a 24-hour period, taking into account the highs and the lows of the season that you're in. Think moisture-wicking materials for the warmer months of the year and layering your clothes when it's cooler. And for an immediate shelter from the elements, make wool a primary item in your family or your group's survival kit. As either an outdoorsman or the survivor of any major disaster, routine will become your closest ally, allowing you to continually perform the important tasks that are required for daily survival. Establishing a routine of daily and necessary chores that include the setting up of camp as well as its expedient breakdown, seeing to your hygiene requirements, collecting and purifying water, and meal creation will allow you to stay focused on the events around you without falling behind on these important tasks. As you move from one destination to another, you always want to keep your eyes open for readily available sources of tinder. These are the extremely fine, sometimes fibrous or cotton-like materials that you'll find on abiotic pollinating plants, or in some cases the tips of dried grasses. It is this material that can easily be turned into a flame with as little as a shower of sparks from a ferro rod, a flint and steel, or in some cases a broken or empty lighter. I'm going to be making a bird's nest with the tinder that I find today. Without it, I'm going to have a much harder time making a fire tonight as night begins to fall. Once you've gathered the materials for your tinder bundle, it's time to begin looking for kindling and fuel for your fire. Kindling is your next stage of fuel after tinder. It consists of small sticks and twigs in most cases that can be used to catch the flame from your tinder and bring the burning temperature of your fire up to the point that it will ignite the larger pieces of fuel that will keep your fire going all night long. Once you've found what you think will be enough kindling to ignite your larger pieces of wood, collect double that amount. Doing this will ensure that you have enough starting fuel for your fire, and once that's done, you can begin to sort your fuel, which is the wrist size and larger piece of wood that will keep your fire going into the night and keep you from collecting wood in the dark. Striking your fire is one of the most important things that you'll do during a crisis. It will provide you with safe drinking water, light, and warmth, and is going to ensure that you have the best chance of survival. Heat from my tinder and kindling is going to rise, and to take advantage of this natural occurrence, I'm going to place my fuel vertically around my fire source like a teepee. This physical position of my fuel will spread the fire by increased heat transference through radiation, convection, and direct contact with the flame. Once you have found a source, your ability to treat the water that you collect, making it safe to drink, will become your largest concern. Waterborne diseases are caused by a variety of biotoxins, toxic contaminants, and microorganisms and result in an estimated 2 million human fatalities per year. Bring all water that is suspected of harboring unknown microorganisms to a boil for no less than 3 minutes, adding a single minute of boiling time for each 1,000 feet that you stand above sea level. This method of disinfection will treat your water for both known and unknown microorganisms, including many of the deadliest pathogens known to exist. The environment is full of opportunities to meet our daily needs. Understanding the spatial dynamic of hunting and gathering during a crisis means understanding that your ability to find food in any environment is limited by the natural occurrence of food sources at those locations. Like humans, animals and plant life are driven by an outstanding desire to survive, and will in most cases take all steps necessary to sustain that desire. Understanding animal travel patterns throughout the day and night, as well as observing signs of nearby prey, such as well-used game trails and the avoidance activity of nesting birds, will ensure that you find the sustenance to continue even while on the move. Quickly and successfully navigating the terrain that you move through will depend heavily on your ability to find direction in as many environments as possible. Becoming aware of the variations in the ways that shadows fall will not only help you to gauge your direction as you continue to travel, but it will also indicate the time of the day and how much further you should travel before nightfall. By using the skills that you've seen in this program, along with real-world practice and a keen understanding of the events that can lead to a disaster, you can be confident knowing that when faced with a crisis, you will have the skills to make it through the emergency and to help others.